What's up, guys? It's your Super Players back at it again with another awesome market watch, and it's your host Tony G, bringing you another one this week. And so DraftBox 6 is relatively cheap. It's been dropped. It came out last Friday, and I highly recommend picking up some of these cards. I'm gonna mention some of these cards that I saw that were being used a lot in the last event that I think that just happened, which was the PPG tour. I believe the Miami one that just happened recently, and some of the best players were using some of these cards. So you got to keep an eye on some of these cards that I'm gonna mention. There's not that many listings. I am definitely just gonna look at TCG player for now, and then next week you'll see a better understanding of how the market looks like for these cards. But right now they're relatively cheap, and I highly recommend picking some of these. And I wish I could tell you pick up all of them, just because this is the first time a draft box is this cheap. And the one, I think some of these cards are, like, from what people have told me, like, yeah, these cards are good. Some of them, that some players that were using them. So let's dive into the DraftBox 6. So right now I'm gonna show you an overview of all of them. I wish I could talk about every single one of them, but to keep the video short, here they are. So you see Giant for Sale just dropping from 8 to 5. We see 8 to 4, 8 to 7, 7 to 7, 8 to 5, and it's awesome. I honestly am so hyped about how cheap this is, because it's been a while since the draft box has been this cheap. So the first card we're going to mention is Demon God Demigod True Power Unleashed. This is a phenomenal card. It could be splashed in almost any deck, especially if you're running mono black. A lot of Demigod players were using this card, or even I believe Vegex, and even Dark Broly is taking advantage of this card's ability, because when this card is played using Dark Overrealm, it stays on field. And not only that, you draw one card when you use it, and then you choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards and send it to the warp. And then when this guy attacks, your opponent chooses one card in their hand and sends it to the warp. So they lose two cards from one attack from this guy. One on play, and then another based on attack. So this guy is so powerful. Dark Broly is taking advantage of this guy for sure. Definitely a huge shout out to Core TCG. That's where we buy our singles. But also, it's $34.95 being the cheapest. And obviously there's a $30 one, Pink Kamehameha, but you're paying $5 shipping. So you're looking at 35 bucks for this card, but I think it might go down. Honestly, it might be a little cheaper than what it looks like. I think just because events aren't as popping, going like crazy right now. Stay tuned. Next week we'll definitely have a better understanding of like what the new market or the new prices will be, because this event that just happened, shout out to Core, that we commentated, and a lot of people, DraftBox 6 was not legal yet. So following weekend, this upcoming weekend, I believe it's going to be legal, and a lot of people might have access to some of these cards. So definitely pick them up now this week if you can, because they're probably going to go up right now. This might go up, it might not, I don't know, but I highly recommend picking them up now, just because I think they're going to go down. From what it looks like, a lot of these cards are going down in price. So don't quote me. I think this might be one of those cards that it might not. I'm still 50-50 about this one. But moving on to the next one is Bardock Grade 8 Basalt. This is another card I foresee going down. I don't see it very being used a lot that much, just because you have to evolve. You have to evolve based on like having a Bardock in play that's an energy cost 2 or more, and there's not that many, and it has to be blue, and so it's relatively restricted to a certain amount of plays you could do with this card. And yeah, it's also sitting at $20, $22. It's probably gonna go down, I think. Definitely pick them up when you can. You don't want to deal with like old Booney being like 40 bucks, you know, 2 weeks from now, 50 bucks. But another card that people are actually not picking up, and it's relatively cheap, and it's very phenomenal. I think it's going to be used in a lot of red leader decks, is King Piccolo, the new ruler. If your leader card is red, this card gets a 5,000 power. Your opponent can activate blockers in response to this card's attack, and activate main. If you have a unison in play with 3 or more markers, play this card from your hand, and you can play copies of this card for the turn. And at the end of the turn, this card is sent to the owner's warp. So just imagine you use this guy. It's a 20k double striker for that like last push for attack, and your opponent cannot activate blockers, which is pretty awesome in my opinion. It's a guaranteed double strike going in if they don't have blockers on field. Or, I mean, if they have blockers, it's not going to stop it. And then, obviously, negates could stop it. But it's a very powerful card, and a lot of people are utilizing this card in a Broly deck. The red Broly makes it way more consistent, applies more pressure, and it's being used aggressively. So a lot of people are using this guy. It's so strong because it just needs 3 or more markers. It doesn't say specified cost of 3. So a lot of people are using this card just because Kale gets, or Broly adds a lot of markers relatively quickly, and so does Gogeta. And so this guy comes out and is just, whoo, when he's out, it's gonna do some major damage, and it's sitting at $9, and highest is gonna be 15 bucks. And people are starting to notice that it's a relatively strong card, and it's going to 15 bucks, and it's sitting at $9.99. So I highly recommend picking it up at $9.99. It might be going up a little bit more. Like I said, everything's going to change after this weekend. I think there's going to be an online tournament, and these are going to be legal, so people are going to be hyped to see the new stuff being played. And so, yeah, it's going to go up, and some of these cards are worth mentioning because these are the ones that are kind of expensive right now, but they're relatively going down in price as well. Like this guy, Raditz, Giant Force, Unison card, another card that could work very well with Reboot Goku. When this card activates its blocker skill, switch it to active mode. And not only that, draw 1 card at the end of turn, switch this card to active mode without applying any markers. And then another one is activate main -2, is choose up to 2 of your opponent's battle cards and return it to the owner's hand. And at the end of turn, switch 1 of your blue energies back to active. So it's a very phenomenal ability. You're constantly manipulating your energy, and like every like Soul Striker is just you want to manipulate your energy as much as you can by the end of your turn, so you can use awesome effects. And so we have it being at $11.65, and it's probably gonna stay at this price. If not, probably go down a little bit. This might be a better substitute for Gogeta Unison Champion Pack card. It just depends on what you want to use it for. Definitely for different strategies for sure. So it's between this one and Gogeta and Starter Coup, or Reboot Starter Coup, and I highly recommend picking them up. They're pretty cheap. I think these are relatively cheap right now, and for the most part I recommend getting them, and that's why I'm like doing these, because these are so strong and they're so cheap for what they're worth. And this guy's amazing too, Piccolo Jr. Giant Force, another great unison. When your opponent adds a card from their life to their hand or drop area, add a marker to this guy. So automatically he gains a marker if your opponent adds a card from their life, no matter what. And then choose one of your opponent's battle cards with, and it gets -5,000. This guy is phenomenal, especially in a Broly deck, just because Broly finally has a remover for -5. So what's stopping Broly was Dark Power Mass Saiyan, and using this guy -5k will definitely help you out in that situation. So depending on what you want to go, it's either Kale or this guy. I think it might be this guy's better use in my opinion, just because you add markers, does relatively strong effects, and it just adds so much pressure on your opponent as well. Like you might not neg them 15,000 power, but you bring out 3 or less 19,000 power or less cards from your deck and play them, which is a great effect anyway, whether you want to burn damage them or if you want to do some crazy nifty abilities. So I don't know, I think this guy's very strong as well. 1220. I do see some of these unisons going up in price just because it makes certain decks way stronger for sure. So highly recommended getting it right now, because honestly a playset for 40 bucks is not bad in my opinion. And especially how some cards are going to be a little bit more expensive in the long run. Like this guy could be used in a lot more red decks for sure. And then we go into Son Goku off to defeat King Piccolo. Another great card. If your leader card, when this card is played, choose all of your opponent's battle cards. They get minus 20,000 power, and then choose up to one of your opponent's red unison and add or choose up to one of your red unisons and add a marker to it. Very great, very strong. I think I'm looking at the wrong one. I meant to look at the other Goku. Not this one, this guy. This is the one I meant to look at. Sorry about that, everybody. That's so funny. They look the same. They almost look similar. I'm so sorry. I meant to look at this one, not that guy. I was like, wait a minute, that's not the effect. This guy's amazing, because I saw someone playing this on stream with Red Hit. I knew this card was very strong in a mono, or not a mono, where something uses skillless ability, whether it's Kid Goku, any other ability leader that brings out 2 or less. And so this guy's awesome. I think this guy's sitting at 849. It might be this price. It works really well with certain decks. Obviously, if we're using skillless, this is great. I mean, if your strategy is based on skillless, this is a phenomenal card for sure. And it's sitting at $8.99. This might hit like a $15 mark for sure, because people are noticing that this guy works very well with skillless, makes it consistent, and it's a big threat. So, and it's still a Goku card, and it's also a Goku Youth, I believe. So it works really well with Aider, I believe. And so, yeah, really good card. And then we go into Kurdigar and Giant Force. I think this is a phenomenal unison as well. Some of these Giant Force unisons are kind of strong, man. I mean, this guy is a 15k, one specific cost, and then yeah, you drop a card from your hand, and then whatever ability you're going to use, it gains 2 markers, and he can't attack unless you have 3 or fewer markers. So 15k, very strong, activates all of your unison's abilities, like whether it's Frieza, whether it's Dormant Potential Unleashed. This card is crazy good. I think this could be splashed in almost any green leader or deck, as well as when your opponent combos with a card, you could discard it once per turn, which is crazy. I think that's a phenomenal ability as well. I mean, I don't know. I think this might substitute Bardock Unison in my opinion. Like I said, depending on the strategy you're trying to do. And yeah, and so there you guys have it. So these are the cards that I thought were pretty worth mentioning. Definitely hit up in the comment section if there are any other cards we might have missed. And like always, like, comment, subscribe, and let me know in the comment section what cards you think are worth talking about. And don't forget, the giveaway will be announced tomorrow, so don't forget to tune in for tomorrow as well. So if you want to win that, you want to see who won that secret rare or those 2 secret rares, definitely check in tomorrow, because I got a special deck profile for that as well. So like always, smash that like button and stay super, everybody.
Double strike, hey, me and 17, we both up team with the hand destruction, see?
Y ahora se lista con el 17 y los otros 7. Yo miro y te pregunto tu mano, nosotros somos buenos para tirarlo.